up to Cattles and Rami. And joining us now to talk some NBA from GQ Sports and the Locked On Network, veteran on the NBA beat. Pleasure to welcome in Howard Beck. Howard, how are you this morning, my man?
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Great. We were a lot of NBA news to discuss with you today. Let's start with the news of the day, and that's Doc Rivers out in Philly. Did that move surprise you at all?
I don't think it surprised anybody. No. Yeah. Look, tough situation. Put Doc's own record aside for a minute, but, Joel Embiid, lest anybody forget, sprained his knee pretty badly during the first round against the Nets. And probably if it had been the regular season, I don't know if he would have even been playing the last few weeks. So you didn't get the full Joel Embiid. Doc noted that in his final press conference. Harden, this is the thing, right? So we will all agree, everybody who watches the NBA, that James Harden is hard to rely on in the postseason, even when he was in his prime years in Houston. Whether it was petering out because of fatigue, whether it was just not being able to rise to the occasion, shrinking in the moment, however you want to frame James Harden's postseason resume, the guy has a really rough postseason resume for a player of his caliber who's going to go down as an all-time great, as an all-time great scorer, as an MVP, all of that. And so Doc's fate, we can nitpick decisions made in game, rotations, whatever. All the usual stuff that goes with a coach who has fallen short of expectations. Mm-hmm. All those things are fair and fine. But at the end of the day, he's tied to two stars, one of whom is always banged up in the postseason, the other of whom never shows up in the postseason. And, but that's the fate of coaches in this league. And we have just seen how many coaches in the last month lose their jobs after either winning championships in recent memory, going to the finals in recent memory. It's a rough profession.
Yeah, very tough. Nick Nurse, Coach Budenholzer, Monty Williams, the list keeps getting added to. Golden State is not somebody who seems to be changing their coach anytime soon, but there's a lot of talk about Bob Myers' future. Draymond has a contract that he can opt in or out of. Jordan Poole is somebody who Warrior fans seem to be feeling like could be on the move here come this offseason. What kind of changes do you see happening for Golden State now that they're eliminated?
The Bob Myers question is by far the most important one because, if Bob decides to stay and comes to terms with ownership on what the terms of that arrangement are, all that stuff, then you've got somebody in place who has all the history and the rapport and the trust with everybody else who matters, right? Like Steve Kerr's got a year left on his contract, and Steve is very close with Bob Myers. Draymond Green and Klay Thompson are both eligible for extensions, and Draymond, of course, could also opt out if he wanted to. And if you're trying to keep this core together, which I think is absolutely what they hope to do, but you're also having to navigate the delicate issue and the egos that are associated with contract extension talks, right? Klay Thompson's a proud guy. If he still wants the max at this age and stage of his career, that's tough. If Draymond still wants the max at this age, so you want Bob Myers to be the guy having those really delicate discussions. So it starts with Bob Myers. But if I have to guess, Bob is still there. Draymond is still there. Klay is still there. Steph obviously is still there. And then it becomes a question of how much can you improve this roster given how just miles beyond the luxury tax thresholds that you are. Let's say you want to trade Jordan Poole. Great. But is he even a positive asset? What are you getting back for Jordan Poole? Are you willing to put Kuminga on the table? Would you put Moses Moody on the table? There aren't that many levers to pull at this stage. And one more reason why you want Bob Myers still there, because he's the one capable of doing that.
We were talking earlier in the show, speaking of Draymond Green, about betonline.com. They have the Kings as the odds-on favorite to sign Draymond Green if he were to opt out in Golden State. Two-part question, I guess. Do you think there's any chance he opts out? And the second part is Draymond Green or a Draymond Green type what this Kings team needs right now in their stage of development?
So on the just Draymond's contract aspect of this, I think he's staying. I don't think he's going anywhere. All these betting outlets, I get these emails all day, every day of, where guys, give me a break. Nobody knows where these guys are going. It's got to be one of the most ridiculous things to bet on, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
If you are betting if you are betting on these things, people, please reevaluate your life choices. So I think Draymond's staying. But if he were to leave, look, there are all kinds of teams that may or may not have cap room, but like we've heard him tied to the Lakers and LeBron because they've got a relationship. Could he go home to Michigan, play for the Pistons, and be a mentor for that young team, especially if they got Victor Wembanyama in tonight's lottery? There's all kinds of possibilities for Draymond if he were to leave, but I don't think he's going to leave. Your second part of your question, I think, is a really important one for the Kings. I look at where the Kings are right now. Phenomenal season, great breakthrough, and nothing even losing in the first round. It's not even a real upset when you're losing to the defending champions who shouldn't have been that low in the standings in the first place. There's nothing to be unhappy with the way this season went. I just think the next step is going to be the much tougher one, and part of that is you got the number one offense in the league this past season, but they were 24th, I believe, in defensive rating. And improving that is not just a matter of, just coach them up and just emphasize. No, personnel matters with defense. You need defenders to have great defense. And like the Nuggets, it's a weird comparison, but like the Nuggets, if you build your team around a really gifted offensive-minded center who is not a rim protector, so Jokic in Denver's case, of course, and Sabonis in the Kings' case, your next challenge is how do you construct at least an average to hopefully above average or top 10 defense when you don't have a rim protector, but one of your best players is your offensive-minded center. So now you have to figure out. So does that mean you have a shot blocker next to him at power forward? Does that mean you just need to upgrade the wings and just have great perimeter lockdown D so that you don't have to worry about protecting the paint in the same traditional way? Are there other ways to manufacture that? And I think that's been the Nuggets' challenge for the last several years since Jokic rose to prominence. And I think it's the Kings' challenge now. Like I say, not an exact analogy, but it's a similar conundrum, I think. How you get that guy, I don't know, especially when, like everybody else, they're over the cap. They've got Harrison Barnes as a free agent who I think they absolutely have to re-sign. And then it's a matter of, can you just rely on internal improvement, or is there a trade that could be made? I don't know where they go from there, but that's obviously the challenge for them.
Howard, thank you. One more thing about the Kings. Not sure how much you know about Sasha Vezenkov, but there's a lot of talk about him, especially right now here in Sacramento. What do you know about his game? What are you hearing about the chances of him coming over, and how do you see his addition helping this Kings team?
Not familiar with, not equipped to answer that question. Sorry.
Right. No problem.
Fair. And a lot of guys would just BS that answer and act like they know everything. I appreciate the honesty. Lottery tonight. What's the team most intriguing to you in terms of landing the number one pick in Victor Wembanyama? What uniform does he look best in, do you think?
Man, I'm looking at Tankathon right now, so I could just glance at all the teams.
you and a lot of the NBA world today.
I mean, look, there's a bunch of young teams that just need somewhere to start, right? That just need guys to build around. Detroit and Houston. And look, Detroit and Houston both have some good young players, but yeah, Wembanyama would take them to another level. Spurs, obviously. Charlotte, I wouldn't wish that on him, but Orlando would be another piece. The team that intrigues me, if you're looking toward the top of the odds here, the most intriguing one, I think, is Portland. Anybody who gets him, it's going to be fascinating. But Portland is the team that's in this really strange potential inflection point where you got to decide very soon, like now, what you're doing with Dame. And I know nobody wants to trade Damian Lillard or a player of his caliber unless you're forced to, unless the player himself actually says, I want out. And Damian Lillard has been consistent to his credit in saying, no, I'm going to stick this out. But, he's in his mid-30s now. The window is going to shut soon. Even if you got Wembanyama, then the question is, okay, well, that's great. And Wembanyama is going to be an incredible player in this league by all accounts. But it takes guys, even the most talented players who come in, they're not ready to win right away. So by the time Wembanyama really, truly starts to figure out how to be an impactful player in the NBA, probably not on day one, but by day, year 2, year 3, is Dame already done? And I don't. That's not a question I can answer, and it's not a question that the Blazers can probably answer. But you have to pick a direction at some point, and or just they need to have the conversation. Like, Dame, is there somewhere else that you think you could go to compete and we'll get you there? Because they really need to start over, and the package they could get back for him, even at this stage of his career, along with, say, Wembanyama, could set them up for a long time to come. The even more fascinating, potentially, is what happens if Portland ends up at like number 2 and can grab Scoot Henderson. They've already got Dame and Anthony Simons. Scoot definitely has to have the ball in his hands. Like, now what are you doing? Is that a sign that we should just start building around Scoot and trade Dame? Or are you trading Scoot for veterans to try to make one last push with Dame? Portland is fascinating.
That's really interesting.
That is interesting.
I did not think about at all. That's crazy. One more before we get you out of here, Howard. Western Conference Finals start tonight. Lakers, Denver. How do you see that one shaking out?
It's truly a toss-up. There's a lot of case to be made for the Nuggets, who have had this team together for a lot longer. Like, the Lakers just got together a couple months ago, basically. Like, they're still learning each other after all those trades at the deadline. The Nuggets have been together for years now. Jokic has gotten, the typical lessons you learn in the postseason as a young player, where you get smacked down a couple times and you figure out how to handle the spotlight of it all. The Lakers are by far the better defensive team, although the Nuggets have been pretty good in this postseason. And I also think that the hard part of assessing this series for me is that I don't feel like the Nuggets have been truly tested yet. Like, they were great in the regular season, but not dominant. They weren't your typical dominant number 1 seed. Their defense was suspect the whole time. Jamal Murray has only, in the last month or two, started to look like the old Jamal Murray again. And here they are against a team with LeBron and Anthony Davis, where those two guys, have won a championship and been through a ton together, but their supporting cast has not. I could go back and forth with the caveats on each of these teams. And, in this postseason, like, the Nuggets, you smoke the 8th seed because that's what a number 1 seed does. And in the second round, that Suns team was much less than their names suggested. And they were kind of broken by the end, health-wise and otherwise. So I don't know how to assess the Nuggets because I don't feel like they've truly been tested. The Lakers will be appropriately in the Western Conference Finals, their toughest test. So I could absolutely see this one going the distance. I'd be shocked if it ended in anything short of 6 games. And in the end, like, I kind of lean Lakers, if for no other reason than I just never bet against LeBron.
That's Howard Beck. Check out his work at GQ Sports. He Locked On Network on Twitter at Howard Beck, and our guest for the last few minutes here on Chris and Company. We appreciate the time, Chris. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And he joins us on the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. All guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. We touched on the uncertainty in Golden State with Howard right there. We'll talk about that right after this and what it might mean for